Hello, good afternoon. Welcome back to another edition of Kopi Chats with me, your host, Waylene. As usual, we're going to talk about some spicy news today. Exceptionally spicy. So spicy, you actually need coffee or water or milk. Anything to stop the burn of the awesome spice. Now let's jump into it. US intelligence pushes back on Putin's bioweapons propaganda. So if you have not been living under a rock, you would know that there's a war going on. Russia and Ukraine are at war. And not only is the war taking place on the battlefield, it is also taking place online for your hearts and minds. Now watch this. So immediately the headline grabs you. US intelligence pushes back on Putin's bioweapons propaganda. Propaganda, I say. False. Baseless nonsense. Russia is trying to use baseless claims of secret Ukrainian bioweapons programs as a pretext to seize sensitive facilities in the country. Wow, that top U.S. intelligence official warned senators on Thursday. Let's see. Blah, blah, blah. Clearly, there's a difference between bioresearch and bioweapons. Is there anything you can do to help clarify, some of these things? There's an former ambassador in Moscow saying, unlike Russia, which does have chemical weapons and has used them, Ukraine has neither. Yeah, Ukraine has neither. Unlike that evil Putin, who's saying that, we have them, and so he's going to seize them, but we have to stop them from seizing them. Right. So here we go. Watch this.
Does Ukraine have chemical or biological weapons?
Ukraine has biological research facilities, which, in fact, we are now quite concerned Russian forces may be seeking to gain control of. So we are working with the Ukrainians on how they can prevent any of those research materials from falling into the hands of Russian forces should they approach.
I'm sure you're well.
So that was the Undersecretary of State. I believe that's the position. Very senior, extremely senior civil servant, Victoria Nuland, giving testimony to the U.S. Senate, saying that, responding to the question, does Ukraine have, bioweapons research facilities? Says, well, we have research facilities, and they belong to the Ukraine. That's what Ukraine has. And it's another part of the later part of this exchange where the same man here, Senator Marco Rubio, interjects Victoria Nuland and says, if there's any kind of attack, chemical bioweapon attack, it must be from Russia. Is that right? To which she replies, yes, of course, totally. Funny thing that he would do that to, lead the witness and, get her to acknowledge that, it's got to be by Russia, and totally evil, by the way. So, doesn't this raise a question? Wait, so are there bioweapons? She says no. Okay. So they're not bioweapons, right? They're just some kind of biological research, maybe just something like to treat the common cold, how can we, answering questions like how can we prevent seasonal cold more effectively, maybe, reducing, childhood mortality through research in some bugs, that seasonal bugs that bother people. Isn't it strange if that's so harmless that the Russian military would want to get hold of it? So how do you maintain the idea that on the one hand, it's totally nothing. It's not bioweapons at all. They're just the normal, plain old research. On the other hand, Russia wants it because it's extremely dangerous and, will be used in an attack, which we totally expect coming. How do you hold the two opinions at the same time? They can't be at the same time. They're just harmless, facilities. There's nothing serious there at all. On the other hand, Russia's totally going to use what's inside there to conduct some kind of attack and blame it on us. So something doesn't add up there. Further to that, in the same session, by the way, Undersecretary of State Nuland had this to say as well.
Engagement Center, which you all helped us stand up and supported works 24/7 with other allies and partners, not just in Europe, but around the world, to bring to light Russian disinformation campaigns and who is pushing them. We also work with the tech companies to try to take down false stories, and we are working very assiduously on all of that now. We're also working to try to get truth into Russia in the context of a complete freeze on independent news going there. And
would you listen to that? So when you read this, talking about how, it's totally false that there are bioweapons in Ukraine that the U.S. is involved in, and you heard from the Undersecretary of State that we are working really assiduously to push back on this propaganda, what does that make you believe? What do you think is really going on? Is she being truthful? Why would she go on the Senate floor and admit that the U.S. State Department has been involved, U.S. government has been involved with biological research facilities in the Ukraine? If they're just really Ukrainian, they're not really related to the U.S. at all. They're just not really our concern. But why would you be so concerned that Russia would take hold of it, and why would you be testifying about it in the U.S. Senate? Isn't that strange? Raises more questions than it answers. Now, if you don't think propaganda is effective, well, let this, erase all doubt in your mind. The Ukraine embassy in Singapore gets calls from people keen to join the Russia fight. The Ministry of Home Affairs warns against joining the war. That is an offense for any person while in Singapore to wage or attempt to wage and so on against the government of any power with which Singapore is not at war. So if the Singapore government is not at war with someone, you cannot be at war with them either. Now, this is the law, and like it or not, we accept it. That's what it is. But isn't it remarkable that the information that people have been exposed to is so inflammatory, so triggering, that they are actually ready to put their lives on the line to fight Russia? Isn't that strange? Isn't that powerful? And how does that fit in with what you just heard from the Undersecretary of State for the United States, right? And look at this further. So you just heard Victoria Nuland say that we'll be working, with our social media partners and news partners to combat disinformation, trying to get the truth into Russia as well, is what she said. Look at this. Facebook temporarily allows posts on Ukraine war calling for violence against invading Russian or Putin's death. Wow. If you remember, there was this orange-colored man who was kicked off Twitter and most social media barely, a year and a half ago? Maybe 2 years, at most 2 years ago, for mean tweets, tweeting to people in a really mean way. And today, we have gone all the way to the other side to permit calls for violence against a nationality or an ethnic group even. Wow. So, he says here, Meta platforms will allow Facebook and Instagram's users in some countries call for violence against Russians and Russian soldiers. How is that acceptable in the year 2022? If anything, perhaps, in Singapore, we should be considering banning Facebook temporarily for this kind of, absurd warmongering, permitting, actually, without even hiding it. This is what's going on. Now, you may think, Waylene, I don't know what goes on Facebook, but I read respectable news, and that totally doesn't happen, where I'm getting my news from. Perhaps. Well, maybe, I don't even know really if you do see any fake news. The likelihood is high, but, I can't know for sure. But how do you tell what's fake? Let's look at this. Outcry over barbaric airstrike at Ukraine Children's Hospital. Barbaric, I say. An apparent Russian airstrike destroyed a children's hospital in the besieged Ukrainian port of Mariupol on Wednesday, triggering renewed global outrage. The outrage machine is in high gear. U.S. condemned the bombing as barbaric. Oh, wait, United States. I wonder if there's something to do with that Victoria Nuland lady. Ooh. After the strike, buried patients under rubble. Wow, that is outrageous. Kids and pregnant women. The attack, which authorities said injured women in labor and left children in wreckage, is the latest grim incident in a 14-day invasion. Wow. Heartless Russians. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. If true, and if you are watching my video, most likely you're skeptical about it, because that's why you're here. So let's take a look at what I managed to find regarding this exact story. On Twitter, I follow this account, Russians with Attitude. So they started off as a Russian history podcast, but they've recently gone into talking about the war because it's a live thing, and they're able to provide information to the best of their ability. They're very honest that they are Russians, and they say that they make an effort to be as objective as possible and provide information that can be verified as accurate. And where they cannot verify it, they state as much. Okay, I can trust them. I trust that they try their best, but I don't have to trust that they're accurate. So let's read this. Regarding the hospital in Mariupol, I'm not a person who screams false flag at everything he dislikes. And even if it were hit by Russian artillery, that's a tragedy, but a natural consequence of refusing to evacuate civilians plus placing weapons in hospitals. So that's an accusation that's been leveled against the Ukrainian army. They have blocked civilians from leaving combat zones, as well as putting, like turrets, artillery pieces near the schools and hospitals. That's the accusation. Now, they go on. There are a couple of strange things about it. It was reported that the hospital wasn't working as a hospital for at least several days. I don't know where that came from, but okay, that's a claim. The witnesses are confused and can't say whether it was a shell or bomb from a plane. People learn these things quickly in war. Right, was it mentioned? Barbaric airstrike. So it's probably from the air. But you say that witnesses couldn't tell? And according to Russians with Attitude, they say, well, if you're in a war, you kind of figure, you notice very quickly what sounds like an airstrike and what sounds like shelling, right? Artillery. A ton of victims are claimed by the Ukrainian side, but there's only one ambulance in the video, and one of the wounded being carried out looks to be wearing camouflage. So, possibly military. Very strange, very strange. I haven't seen the video, but I reckon that there is a video. No traces of blood or any kind of damage because there's always video. There's video everywhere. So there's a high chance that there's video. I may look it up later and then, share it subsequently in a subsequent video. No traces of blood or any kind of damage to people on the footage from inside the building, which is weird. Right. So, if the whole building is destroyed, would the people inside, suffer a lot of injuries? Very strange. Right. Tons of victims, only one ambulance. No blood on people on the footage from inside the building. The first footage appeared at 5:50 p.m. Already at 6:30, Reuters reported that there were children under the rubble, citing Zelensky, who made the claim at 6:20 p.m. That is very quick, suspiciously quick. I can believe that. I can. In any case, I don't exclude the possibility that might have been collateral damage from a Russian attack. This would be immensely sad, tragic, and regrettable. Yes, agreed. So, and also, do you have this I have this strange question in my mind. That is, we've heard early on that, the Russian Air Force has total superiority, that they were taking out, the Russian army was destroying all the air bases, the air defenses of Ukraine. So 2 weeks into this war, we're still seeing news, or I still see claims that the Ukrainian Air Force is still flying. They're still flying. They're not wiped out. They're not at 100%, but they are fighting. And isn't that very strange? I also saw some tweets that showed Russian strikes, hitting airfields, but they totally missed the runway, or, they hit the edge of the runway. And the runway is a really big piece of real estate, You can hit a runway. You would think you could hit a runway, right? If you have this really modern, intimidating army from the Federation of Russia, right? Top class army, but one of the best in the world, surely, right? You can't hit an airfield. right? You can't destroy all the airfields such that the Ukrainian Air Force is still active, but somehow you can hit an hospital. Now, there's no question that a runway, airport runway, is occupies much larger space than a hospital, right? Hospitals, well, it stands vertically, occupies less space on the ground, so would be harder to hit a hospital. So if they were aiming for a hospital, what's the chance that they would hit the hospital, but maybe not after many tries hitting things nearby around? I'm not really sure, but I think that's a reasonable question, right? And that's not all. Okay, look here. There's a news site called lenta.ru. There's a quote here, excerpt from the article report there. Igor said that in the last days of February, people in uniform came to the maternity hospital where his mother works. He does not know whether they were soldiers of the armed forces of Ukraine or the Azov Nationalist Battalion. The military knocked down all the locks, dispersed the staff of the maternity hospital, and set up firing points at building in order, as they explained to the medics, to prepare for the defense of Mariupol fortress. In response to objections, the military had the standard reaction: blows with rifle butts and shooting into the air. Now, is this verified? Don't know. But look at this other video that the guys found. So somebody allegedly went into the destroyed hospital and took some video to show the horrible situation, how it's been utterly ripped apart. Then one comment here from the Russians with attitude guys is that, hey, it could be water that turned red from mopping on blood, but this is supposed to be the immediate aftermath. At 1 minute 03, there is a bucket here, and I will show it to you. There. So this video was allegedly taken from the immediate aftermath, but there is a bucket of what looks to be a reddish liquid. Huh. Isn't that strange? Where did that come from? Was it prepared beforehand? Don't know. Reported to be footage from inside the hospital before the Russian strikes. Right. The Russian Ministry of Defense mentioned in its March 5th briefing 4 days ago that Ukrainian forces are firing from inside the hospital. And we know that Mariupol has been under siege for some days now. It's not as if this is a new thing happening inside Mariupol, right? So the Russians' attitude guys go on to say there are two versions of what happened in Mariupol. One, Russians planted news stories about Ukrainian soldiers taking over the hospital and kicking everyone out well in advance because they wanted to bomb it so badly. And maybe that's what we were seeing, right? There were planted news stories, Putin propaganda. Or else number two, the Azov battalion did what they were confirmed to have done numerous times already. The Azov battalion, if you're new to this, is a paramilitary group, as in they began as a informal or at least unofficial military group for the defense of the Ukraine. Eventually, I think sometime in 2014, 2015, they were formally absorbed into the army, or they made an official unit. They are known to be right-wing, and they have been accused of, or maybe even convicted of being Nazis, neo-Nazis. They do have a political arm that has contested elections, at a political party. So they are very well known. They're not like a small organization. They're very large. And they have been known to do terrible things. If you Google Azov Battalion crimes, you will find a substantial amount of material. And if you see the nature of the crimes that they've committed, it would not be surprising that this is something that they could have done. But again, we don't know for sure. But we know for sure that something which seems rather ambiguous is presented to us as extremely clear and tuned for maximum emotional impact. And I think that should make us very skeptical. All right. moving on from this maximally, triggering news. Something totally different. Singapore must guard against foreign interference that tries to weaken trust, confidence in criminal justice system. So the Ministry of Home Affairs, according to Minister of State for Home Affairs, Dr. Faisal Ibrahim, he said that Singapore has to guard against foreign interference. There was an NGO from Malaysia that attempted to become involved in a case against death row prisoner. The application sought declaration that the Attorney General had acted arbitrarily, discriminated against the convicted person as a Malay, and exceeded his powers and acted unlawfully. The High Court dismissed the application, finding that the allegations were baseless, and the application was abuse of court process. And of course, it's extremely sensitive in Singapore and Malaysia. Issues of race and religion are extremely sensitive. And while you can talk about many, many things out in public, this is one of the things that you have to steer clear of if you don't want to get into trouble. So this is already caused substantial repercussions. The Attorney General Chambers said it will be seeking personal costs against Mr. Cheng Kim Kwan, the lawyer in charge of the case. So already the lawyer in charge of the case is going to have to pay a hefty fine. He's going to, be pursued legally. And the minister, Faisal Ibrahim, said while other countries and NGOs may not share the same views as us, this is an issue for Singaporeans to decide. In the incident I referred to, we see them trying to mobilize public opinions using baseless accusations to play up the issue of race to weaken Singaporeans' trust and confidence in the criminal justice system. We must be on our guard against foreign interference. Be on your guard against foreign interference. I wonder how might that be relevant to the world today. Yeah, can't tell. Let's move on then, since I can't think of anything. In a totally changing gears totally, even Google agrees there's no going back to the old office. So it turns out that Google is one of those companies that really, really wanted people to go back to the office. There's been a push for a return to normal. Last week, company told employees they must return to the office from early April, but only 3 days a week. They really, really wanted people to head back to the office. Let's see. Google began under pressure to soften its opposition to remote work in 2020. In December of 2020, CEO told employees we're testing a hypothesis that a flexible work model will lead to greater productivity, collaboration, and well-being. So, Google reluctantly is embracing more of a remote work model. And I know that this is currently also the model that is being trialed in Singapore. Civil servants now go to the office also 3 days a week. And it seems that many, many large companies are also following suit. Looks like it will be quite common moving forward. And related to this, this whole change has definitely, impacted young parents, working parents with children, and that's led to a lot of discussion online. Now here's one of them. Commentary: we need to stop telling women that they can have it all. Instead, we should work towards sharing it all, says Mercer's Renee McGowan. Who is Renee McGowan of Mercer? Let's see now. So Renee McGowan is Mercer's president for Asia, Middle East, and Africa, leading Mercer's business across 18 markets. She's chairperson of Mercer in Japan and executive director of Mercer boards in China and Hong Kong. She is obviously a very senior, very successful professional who is well aware, as a woman, of the challenges of being a woman in the professional sphere. And she begins popularized in the 80s. The ambiguous notion of having it all has become synonymous with the idea of a perfect modern working woman. And no less a figure than Mercer's Renee McGowan would know about it. She being someone who has epitomized, success in that arena. One who seamlessly juggles high-flying career and personal interests. Perfect mother, wife, and employee. Back then, it was a signified ambition, beyond what was expected. 3 decades on, some say it's more of the unrealistic expectations and unnecessary pressure for women. Is that so? It certainly sounds like it might be, right? So, working women today face increased pressure to succeed at work and manage their care of their families. Yes. Everybody, yes, suffers from a lot of, has a lot of pressure at work and in the home. And Renee McGowan goes on, reeling from burnout and exhaustion. 1 in 3 women have considered leaving the workforce or moving to less demanding careers. Yes. This is totally understandable, right? It's tough. It's tough working in the 21st century. Having it all is hurting, not helping women. This narrow definition of success for women is which is not having a great career and a great family is problematic. I couldn't agree more, Renee McGowan. So what do you propose, right? Are you saying that maybe it should not be a thing to talk about? It should not be a thing to have both a great career and a great family, right? Maybe it should be okay if you have a great family, or if you just have a great career, right? Maybe we should be asking, maybe we should be encouraging, more women to boldly, make their decision about how they want to live their life, right? Sounds about right. Okay. So it goes on. At a time when women have more opportunities and choices, women are redefining success on their own terms. So far, so neutral. Some prioritize family, some greater emphasis on professional achievements. Neither is less. Okay, still very carefully neutral. Now, if we get somewhere, the biggest issue with having it all is that it remains a one-sided conversation. It reinforces different rules for success for men and women. Wait a minute, now we're somewhere. Like, what do you mean? How is having it all remaining a one-sided conversation and different for men and women? Do men even care about having it all? Do we talk about, I have never heard about that. I'm a man, and I've never heard about that. A study by University of Georgia found that men struggle as much as women to balance work and family obligations. Yeah, I reckon, because it's just difficult living in the 21st century and balancing work and family. But how is it a one-sided conversation, right? So where is this going, Renee McGowan? While household and caregiving responsibilities still lie more with women, research suggests the gap is narrowing. Whoa. Hold on a moment here, Renee McGowan. I don't know what goes on in your family, but it seems like you're just casually assuming a big thing, right? Let's see. Ipsos and United Women Singapore 2020 study found that a shift of attitudes between generations is more significant now, right? Below 35 years old. So the younger people are, the more open they are to sharing responsibilities. Oh, okay, that's great. We need to go from having it all, sharing it all, not just at home, but in the workplace. Wait a minute. So now we're getting to what you really want to say, right? So much of the focus on increasing women's participation in the workforce has been centered on what women need in order to stay in the workplace or rise to the top of the field. Now we're totally leaving behind the women who don't want to go into the workplace. While maternity leave and access to affordable childcare, design women in mind, all critical and important. Oh, so see, we're still talking about, things that are designed with women in mind and working women. So we start off talking about, oh yeah, it's okay, if women want to stay at home or they want to work in the workplace. But now we're very firmly talking about working women. And then we had a light mention of men. And where does that go? Well, let's see. We're talking about men taking a few days off from work for paternity leave. So, let's see. The writer basically, quite cleverly, goes to saying that men don't take paternity leave that is allocated to them. So, I think she's proposing that men take more paternity leave, right? So that more women can have it all. Because, remember, this conversation's all about the concept of having it all. So she's saying now, well, instead of having it all, which puts all the burden on you, why don't you share it all and ask your man to take paternity leave? Because if you can share it all, then what happens? Well, then you can have it all. You don't have to give up your career success, because why else would you give up some of your burden in the family sphere, right? Aside from, oh, well, then obviously you can do a little bit more on the professional side of things. And that's not an unreasonable thing, because some women will want that. Some people want that. But it seems to me, I don't like how it's kind of sneakily snuck in. You know, this article begins by acknowledging that some women want to focus on the family. Then after that, they're just left behind. Like, we don't care about them anymore. We're talking about the women who want to focus on their career. And after that, well, how can men help with that? How can men, sacrifice more in pursuit of women having it all? Now, right now, we call it sharing it all, so that, you can also feel good about the extra burden that you have to carry, dear men. Because whatever you do, it's clearly not enough, right? If you think that I'm being maybe a bit too much, well, I'm just getting started. So it seems that Channel News Asia is just has ample material on women's issues. It's very, very. It gets more noticeable. The more you read it, the more noticeable it gets. Commentary: what happens when women have to juggle worry work with paid work? So, I can summarize this for you. It's not that heavy. Essentially, it goes to say that it says that the work of ordering more diapers, supervising their children's schooling, scheduling doctor's appointment, what to have for dinner, is worry work. Yeah, and women do more of it. Right, there are many examples. And let's see. Children throwing tantrums, right? Also worry work, right? You hear a quarrel with your essential worker husband. So the takeaway, or the remedy, right, for this is that, okay, well, mothers are bearing this invisible yoke, as they say. Well, let's see. Yes, working mothers can benefit all workers. How do we value this unpaid care work? What can employers do to consider this and ensure working mothers are not left behind in their careers? Key measures could include more subsidized childcare, increased paid parental leave, and flexible work practices. But all this did not be a zero-sum game and make workers without children begrudge soaking up more of the work. Of course, they don't necessarily have to begrudge it, even though they actually will. It benefits all workers, and bosses pay greater attention to work-life balance, micromanage less, and allow workers to disconnect when they have to. This is so generic as to be totally meaningless, right? Because this is something that should be done, whoever it is, whether it's women with children in worry work, or fathers with children in worry work, or just normal, single people. This should always be done. Work-life balance, less micromanaging, allow workers to disconnect when they have to. Totally generic and totally sensible, but has absolutely no specific, relevance to this topic. So, why couldn't we turn this around? Could we not say, why don't we support stay-at-home moms so that they don't have to worry about paid work? We have already spoken about supporting working moms so they don't have to worry about worry work, or you might say, like domestic work. So why don't we support stay-at-home moms so they don't have to worry about getting paid work, because it's so hard to make ends meet in the 21st century? Isn't paid work also a burden on moms who would rather care for their families, give their families the best care that they possibly can? So if it hasn't occurred to you, and I'm sure it has, because you're watching this video, you're smart, you're critical, and that's why you're interested in what I'm saying. Both of these articles, underneath it, there's an undercurrent that, okay, we're going to encourage women to work. And also, it'll be hard, but you can do it. We'll encourage your employers to take care of you better, and encourage your men to take care of you better. Well, not that you can't be with a woman, because, it's the 21st century. But we will ask others to step up. And you just keep working, Because don't stop. You can't. You shouldn't stop. Now, where is this leading us? Well, allow me to tell you. So, the South Korean presidential election just took place yesterday, I believe. The winner's already been announced. This commentary came back from a few days ago. The South Korean Conservative Party has made its comeback. They've won. Now, this commentary, though, is talking about the change in South Korean society. The Conservative back, led by Yoon Suk-yeol, captured the imagination of those younger males who are disillusioned with left-leaning policies. So there's a disappointment with incumbent Moon Jae-in's performance. And let's see, Yoon is intriguing and unusual because he has no experience in electoral politics. And let's see, the Moon administration promised to realize the values supported by candlelight protesters, equality, fairness, and social justice, but has failed to successfully address important socioeconomic issues. The current government has overseen a rapid increase in housing prices. Yes, absolutely terrible. Further, real estate, college admissions, sexual harassment scandals among high-ranking government officials have shown that they're not that different from, the people they replaced. Very true. Power corrupts. So traditionally, young South Koreans voted for more progressive candidates, which is a kind of a worldwide phenomenon. The younger you are, the more in favor of like equality and these kind of progressive values. So that's typical. Whether it's the United States or in South Korea, as you can see. I bet it's probably much the same in Singapore or the countries around Southeast Asia as well. However, that is totally different now. So candidate and now President Yoon Suk-yeol, he promised to abolish the Ministry of Gender Equality and Family as part of his anti-feminist agenda. Now, what? You may wonder, there's a Ministry of Gender Equality? Yes, dear viewer. Allow me to show you just briefly. This is what the website looks like. Here you go. Family-oriented. Gender equality and family. All right. Let's see. Scroll very quickly through their carousel. Yeah, as you can see there. I can't read any of it, but it gives you a flavor. Okay? So what's going on? South Korea's conservatives have found success by provoking gender conflict and mobilizing anti-feminist narratives, arguing that gender equality policies violate meritocratic values and fair competition and result in reverse discrimination against men. Wow, you can tell that this is written with one side very much firmly in mind, because it says here that the conservatives are provoking gender conflict and mobilizing anti-feminist narratives. Yes. So the provoking part is what really tells you that they have one particular viewpoint in mind. One possible explanation for why this message resonates so strongly may lie in the efforts of conservatives to capitalize on frustration and resentment of lack of economic opportunities and limited future prospects in an extremely competitive labor market. Yes, South Korea is known to be extremely competitive, right? It's very known to be meritocratic and very competitive. And you just heard that property prices are really high. So if you're young, you're male, it's very competitive. And not only do you have to sacrifice, a solid chunk of your time to serve your country in military service, after that, whoever women were in your class previously have, a head start in their career. So you're already behind. And also you see property prices rising all the time. That just makes you even more stressed, right? Yeah. So instead of pledging to reduce social inequality and increase opportunities for younger generations, conservative presidential candidate Yoon has adopted the easier and more divisive Earth versus them strategy. Right. So there you go. So it's very clearly one. So you maybe read this and you find that, you find yourself agreeing with it. Well, it's very easy because we're all primed reading the regular news to agree with this sort of opinion. And you think that, it's the conservatives' fault. Their fault. They're stoking division, right? As if this did not exist. There are no legitimate problems. It's just the issue cooked out of thin air. I don't know. Does that really work that way? Like, I can't cook up out of thin air an issue to say that, the country has too many cars and make that a election issue. I don't know. I would say that, I could probably, I feel pretty confident that I can be a skillful persuader, but I don't know if I can turn like car emissions into a major electoral issue, right? So I don't know if this is really legit. This is if I can believe this, right? Okay, so let's see. Let's move on from that. This issue is so popular that even on Nikkei Asia, they're also reporting about South Korea's presidential election and the politics involved. You can see here. Let's see. In no other race has feminism featured as such a hot issue, defining the key campaign strategies of mainstream candidates. Let's see. Apparently, it's been a very vitriolic race. The picture does not look pretty. Many have labeled this the most unlikable race, and majority of voters showing little enthusiasm. Of course, because it's such a negative sort of campaign, right? You're competing on these issues that are very uncomfortable and people don't like it. A leading newspaper lamented that women are practically erased from this election. As feminism often seems a taboo subject that both candidates try to distance themselves from. That seems like a very contradictory claim, because how do you say at the same time that women were erased from this election when feminism was, a big focus in the election? That seems like very strange, very strange. And the country with the highest gender pay gap among OECD countries. So OECD is a group of rich countries, and South Korea among this group has the highest gender pay gap. UN has designed the existence of structural gender inequality. Now, from my experience, and I was a economics undergrad in college, in university, I haven't seen the evidence, to show why, what is the detail around gender inequality or the pay gap between genders. Because if you just aggregate all the data, you'll find that there is a gap. But of course, this doesn't tell you the reason for it, only that it exists, right? It can be that, women do in fact, commonly have children, and they take time off from work to have children. And maybe that's what accounts for the gap, right? Because you're totaling so much data and so many people have children that, you would expect there to be some, the data in dollars and cents to actually show the difference. Why wouldn't it, right? If you just took data without context, without additional understanding, can be very misleading. Let's say, for instance, deaths from accident in the workplace. I think you get probably a huge discrepancy, like way more men die compared to women in the workplace. But do you need to address this imbalance? Is this something that we need to devote a lot of resources to? Probably not, because there are risky things to do in a workplace, and then maybe the men who do it, they're physically stronger and they're less risk averse. They're willing to take the risk, so they take it, and maybe they're compensated accordingly, quite well for it. Maybe that's fine. Maybe there's no problem to be solved there. So it's very misleading. You can total up all the salaries of everyone and separate them just by one dimension, that is men and women, and then you see a difference and you'll think, oh, okay, there's got to be a discrimination. Well, no, that's not proven at all. Okay, that's my controversial statement for the day. If you disagree with me, tell me in the comments. I'll read it. Show me your evidence and everything. Okay, so let's see. This is a really, really difficult time for South Korea, right? Because see here, communications professor at Arizona State University said the problem is politicians are opening up a zero-sum path for young people, that of hate and aggression toward others. It is really difficult because you can't have your young men and your young women, hating each other or angry with each other, right? It's been such a contentious issue, feminism, that it's like actually splitting the youth. So apparently this divide does not exist in a middle age or older Koreans, but it's a really heated issue for younger Koreans. see this. Digital sex crimes like hidden cameras, Me Too scandals further deepen many South Koreans' awareness of gender inequality. Let's see. So here's the just to sum up a little bit. So property prices are super high, so it's very scary for young Koreans. Competition is fierce and also very scary. And women have a head start in careers. Is not required to do military service. Already, that's something that, well, certainly would can be an issue that causes a great deal of unhappiness, because it sounds very unfair. In Israel, for instance, men and women both do military service, and there's also a law that says in Parliament, 50% of the representatives elected must be women. There are also policies in South Korea to support women who experience career disruption due to childbirth. So when you total all of this together, what the observed outcome is that 70% of men in their 20s say that discrimination against men is severe. Yeah. So much so that the winning candidate, Mr. Yoon, who's now President-elect Yoon, he says that he's going to abolish the Ministry of Gender Equality and Family, and he's going to punish more severely false accusations of sex crimes. So obviously this is popular with his supporters. Say that they're being treated unfairly. Like sex crimes used as a stick to beat them, even when nothing wrong was done. Now, not to say that South Korea doesn't have big problems, like real problems, because yes, as we already known, gender pay gap is largest in South Korea. Why is it larger than other countries? Nobody really knows right now. And it is known that there are high level of sexual crimes, such as hidden cameras, to film women and so on. Well, I guess both, right, men and women. But certainly, women will be the one who suffer more from that kind of thing. So South Korea has some real problems. And why did I mention this? Well, first of all, it's in the news, and second of all, it does appear to be something that's creeping into Singapore, right? There's a very, very great focus on how we can support women, and not to say that there's anything wrong with supporting women, but it seems to be that something that squeezes out discussion of any men's issues, and surely that can't be good in the long term, right? For our society, surely that can't be good. So that's where we are. That is the state of South Korea, and looking back, we can see that there's a little bit of that kind of thing going on here in Singapore. Now, I don't like to end on a negative Nancy kind of note, so let's try to end on a positive note. I just had my birthday yesterday. I had a great time. Had delicious food for 2 evenings straight. I strongly recommend Japanese food. Japanese food is one of the best food in the world. But that was one evening. The other evening, yesterday, I had barbecue, and there was a Texas-style barbecue. I love my meat, so I just wanted to say that so that it'll inspire you, get you thinking about food, away from the realities of what's going on in the world and the news, because we got to take some time to appreciate what we have in our life, and I'm very appreciative. Life is good, and I also appreciate all of you. I appreciate you listening, and I really hope that you have a great day, and I'll talk to you again really soon. Soon as tomorrow. Take care. Bye-bye.